Now, before I even start this video, the first thing I want to say is that I want your feedback. I want your comments, your questions, your thoughts in the comment section down below. So have you been affected by what Cwicly have done by closing the doors pretty much overnight without any forewarning and giving you best part of probably 8 or 9 months to factor in what you're going to do moving forward? So has this had an effect? Were you using Cwicly? Have you kind of reevaluated what you're going to do? How are you going to handle this if you have paying clients that you have projects using Cwicly? Let me have your thoughts and feedback in the comment section down below. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, if you've seen the builder for WordPress called Cwicly, this has recently closed its doors. Within the last couple of days, it literally sent an email out of the blue. I was totally shocked myself, saying that they are no longer going to be producing Cwicly. They'll have bug fixes up until December, the end of the year. They'll give refunds to anybody that's bought the plugin in 2024, but anybody prior to that, well, you're kind of out of luck there. Like I say, I'm going to take at face value what they put out there, the reasoning behind why they actually decided to close the doors overnight. And until we know anything more, we'll just leave it at that. But with all of that in mind, I've been keeping a close eye on different Facebook groups that I'm involved in, my own included, WPTuts, to see the sort of feelings that people have. And first of all, there was a kind of an outpouring of support for the developers and the people behind it because of the reasoning that they use, which is effectively some influencers and some other things going on that kind of has affected their mental health. And they've decided they don't want to deal with this anymore and they're going to close the doors. So it started off with a big outpouring of people being totally supportive by what's going on. But that very quickly has changed over the last couple of days. People that may have started out being very supportive have kind of gone back. They've gauged the sentiment in the different communities. They've looked at how it's affecting them. And that has changed from being totally supportive to being a little bit disbelieving. And in some cases, basically saying, this just doesn't make any sense and we don't believe you. Not saying they're calling them liars, but they're just saying that there's more to it than what they put out there as being the main reasoning behind why they're effectively closing down what is an incredibly powerful and visionary product when it comes to WordPress and full site editing and Gutenberg, compared to a lot of other tools out there. Lots of people saw this as having a very positive future, myself included. So the sentiment is definitely changing as the reality of what's gone on has kind of moved forward, and people are seeing exactly how this is going to impact them personally or on a business level. On top of that, I think there's a general feeling of just being let down by Cwicly themselves. And this is something I think we can all appreciate. It wasn't that expensive to get into for most people, especially if you've got a strong exchange rate. Other countries, that probably could have a massive impact. But people just kind of feel let down. They put their trust into the team, into the product, into the future. And that's now basically just been ripped away with what appears to be no thought for the implications that it has to people that are directly affected by shutting the doors on Cwicly and giving that period of time to transition to another tool. Which kind of leads us on to, what other tools would you actually move over to? You know, there are lots of tools out there, but not many that have done what Cwicly are doing. If you want to stay inside the core WordPress, you don't want to have things like Bricks Builder or Elementor or Breakdance or tools like that. So there's a big gap there being left by what Cwicly was doing because it was such a visionary product inside the Gutenberg and core functionality of WordPress. So there's a big issue there that people are trying to find out what they're going to do. Plus the fact that if you had a project or projects that you had completed and clients had paid for them, well, what are you going to do now? Realistically, for most businesses, you can't turn around and say to that client, look, the software that I advised you on that you paid me X thousands of pounds or dollars for to build your website, they decided to shut their doors. And now we've got to move your site to something else because once the updates stop, well, there's not going to be any more security updates being released, which means that it could be open to vulnerabilities in the future. So what are you going to do? Are you going to charge that client for no fault of their own? Do you have a clause in your contract that says, if the tools that I've recommended close the doors, shut up shop, disappear, you are responsible for the paying again then to rebuild your site or to refactor your site. These are financial implications. If you partway through a project, what do you do? You know, you've invested, let's just say you're 50% of the way through and you invested 2 weeks worth of time into that project. Well, you'd have to throw that away and start again from scratch after you found another tool. Now, on top of that, we're also seeing a bigger, more broad impact across WordPress itself. Because you've seen people that have invested time, effort, money, and their businesses into using a tool like Cwicly, and that's been kind of just like closed down overnight, the bigger impact is that people in business are starting to look at, do I really want to trust smaller development teams? You know, that could have financial implications that means that they close down or shut up shop very quickly, or a million other different scenarios why that tool suddenly disappears or is taken out of your toolbox. The implications for that are massive. And like I say, there is a broad sense of mistrust in smaller development teams, or it's kind of starting to grow where people are feeling like, I'm going to go for this tool that has a longer track record over this tool that may effectively be better, but only has a small development team of maybe 2 or 3 people, or maybe even just a one-man band. This is massive, and I think this is the thing that when something like this happens, there is a ripple effect that spreads out throughout the entire community. People that are not necessarily involved in Facebook groups or sort of Discord chat groups or Slack groups about WordPress. That doesn't change the fact that when you put your faith and your trust into something, it becomes an integral part of your business, and your business has to make money, and then something like this happens, you see a financial ripple effect that goes out from that. Whether it's time you have to invest, projects that have to be scrapped and started again, or how you go back and handle previous projects that are finished but will need to be moved over to something else in the mid-term, if not the short term. The question then arises, what do you move over to if you decide to stick with WordPress? Well, if you want to stay inside Gutenberg, then you do have some tools like GreenShift, for example, but they're not necessarily as forward-thinking as something like Cwicly was. Whether you agree with the Tailwind integration is down to you as an individual, whether you use it or not. The ACF Pro integration was also very useful for a lot of people because it's one less plugin they had to deal with. However, the licensing changes inside ACF Pro have had a knock-on effect there as well, same as it did with Advanced Thema. So there are reasons there. But what do you move over to? Do you go over to something like Bricks? Well, the reality is, if you have that idea in your mind, the seed that's been planted to say, I don't really want to handle projects that are relatively new. You know, Bricks is currently about 2 years old from commercial development. It's got a relatively small team behind it. So does that affect your thought process when you think, okay, I'm going to move over to something else, but looking into it, that's a pretty small team, so I don't want to go down that route. And this is nothing to say that Bricks is going to be gone in 6, 12, 24 months, whatever. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the sentiment that I'm seeing, the comments that are being put out there in the various different groups that I'm involved in. So these are things that people are thinking, which means then where do you go? What products do you actually put your faith into? Because these are the backbone of many people's businesses, whether directly building sites for other people or using it as the backbone for your site that may be making money, e-commerce site, for example, whatever. So it's kind of worrying how this is going to have a bigger impact. And like I said, that ripple effect is definitely starting to be seen out there. If you are members of any of these groups, you can't help but notice, if you've been following the different threads that are popping up, and there are lots of them, how people feel about smaller teams, how they feel about Cwicly, how they feel about the way things were handled. There's a lot of emotion out there right now. But as I said at the top of this video, I want your feedback. Tell me what you think. If you've been impacted, if you are on the outside looking in, has what's happened opened your eyes to smaller teams and how you may be affected by those from a business or a personal level? Let me have all your thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to get a conversation started here. Like I say, the whole point of this is not to pile on with Cwicly. If it is a mental health issue, then I really do wish them all the very, very best. They were, in my experience, when I've talked to Louis on the live stream, and when I've talked to him via email, and anybody else I've had any contact with inside the Cwicly team, they've all been incredibly professional, incredibly kind, polite individuals. And this, I think, is part of the reason why myself and lots of other people really were behind Cwicly and the team and wanted this product to become something a little bit special in effectively a marketplace that's saturated with very, very similar cookie cutter products that are out there when it comes to WordPress. But like I say, whatever your thoughts, let me have them in the comment section down below. As always, all applicable links or anything else I've talked about in the video will be in the description down below. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.